Remember,
But Don,
33 years.
I gotta say, I love it, you guys. When we get together and we start talking, we could just go on forever, right?
oh yeah,
How are we doing
That
today,
is
guys?
true. Oh, so
it's a
far,
bit,
so good.
yeah,
Just
just a
waiting
bit
for
nippy.
the snow.
Yeah, yeah, you guys are in that part of North Central Illinois. By the way, Brian, John, thanks for joining me today. We are going to talk about something decidedly warmer than snow today. But we can talk about snow because you guys are up in Illinois.
Heating up the conversation, you might say.
But
Yeah,
boom.
don't jinx us anymore.
Hey, first, I want to give a shout out to not a sponsor, but I want everybody to know that I do support local businesses in Austin. This is Allen's Boots. I got this shirt for Christmas, but I like it. And these are Allen's Boots. So I do support them.
What you
They're
do,
not
mug
Allen's by
'em?
name. They're Ariats. I know what you guys. Yeah, because I'm cheap enough. But hey, you get a great boot at a fair price at Allen's Boots. And scene. Okay, but yeah, I don't know if you guys. I mean, I first of all, I was thinking about this today because when I start thinking about topics, I start thinking about who I want to talk about with it. And you guys, I think, get the most, I don't know, fun topics, but the interesting ones. Well,
Right.
they're all interesting, but
Well,
Something that
we're,
you can
we're
talk
an
about for
acquired
hours.
taste.
yeah, yeah, that's well stated. You are.
The
I have
the
yet to acquire it,
unusual.
and I've known you for about 62 years.
63, actually.
I know, but I didn't know you when I was a newborn. I threw your. But hey,
We're only
oh
two
yeah,
two beds over.
that's true, literally, because I was leaving and you were coming in. So basically, we should point that out to everybody that John and I were both born on the south side of Chicago, 3 days apart, which is pretty cool. But, and
And
this is
our
a big
mothers
but.
shared the same room for at least one day.
Wow, did they?
Yes. There was
Wow,
actually
we
a
should.
newspaper article. I wish I could find it. I know I got it around here somewhere.
That's so cool. We are pretty cool.
Mhm.
But I mean, I wanted to reach out to you guys, and I'm not surprised to hear that at least one, or if not both of you, have talked about or heard about this topic before. But I just heard a lot of news lately on my primary news resource, which is Yahoo, or yeah, Yahoo, YouTube, uh, that there's more volcanic activity they're getting concerned about under Yellowstone.
Right. The cold air.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the stuff there. I mean, an eruption from there would be just catastrophic for the United States.
Well,
Well,
it
it
got me
showed maps.
concerned because we don't want to like deal in sensationalism, but they were talking about this giant area you're talking about, John, is an area roughly 20 miles across near the northern rim of Yellowstone, and like Brian said, the Yellowstone
Yeah.
caldera. But they said it's shown, quote, a measurable uplift. Now, this is coming from a Montana news source, but
Right.
since midsummer last year, it's gone up. This whole 20-mile section has gone up 1 inch. I think we should pay attention.
Oh yeah, especially since
Yeah.
that section. It's actually 45 by 30 miles.
Wow.
So
And I
45
think there's
miles by
also
30 miles.
there's
The
also a lake
the
there.
bulge is the size of the city of Chicago.
Yeah. Okay. You and I just pointed that out. Are we offended? Why are they picking Chicago? It could be any city.
A lot of hot air in Chicago.
There you go.
Oh, here we go. And so long to our fans from Chicago. We appreciate you listening this long.
Only if they're politicians.
Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you. But
But
but there
yeah,
has
there's
been past episodes in this area, right?
Oh, yeah. I had something over here. There's been like several bulges in that
right.
recently, and I think the most recent ones there've been like three different ones within the last 20 years over there,
Yeah, you
which
mentioned like since the late '90s and early 2000s, so that corresponds to what you're saying
yeah,
in the last 20 years. They
96,
even
Right.
gave it. They
2004,
even
and 2020.
Yeah.
Well, because they got me thinking, and you guys brought it up as we were texting about this episode, the Mount St. Helens. I wonder if it's the same fault line. Is that possible?
Well, if
Well,
something that big went off, it would actually do like a chain reaction from what a lot of theories say, and it would set off other like fault lines and volcanoes.
Yeah, because
yeah,
you guys
plus
were. I
Mount
mean,
St.
we
Helens
just
being in Washington, that's for it to be the same fault line, that would be one huge fault line.
Right.
yeah, but you guys have heard about in reference to Illinois, the St. Louis fault line. I've felt
The
earthquakes in
New Madrid,
Illinois.
New
Yeah,
Madrid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
it's
just
pretty
had
long.
one out here about a week ago.
Yeah, not too long ago we had one. But the time before that, I actually had one wake me up. This was several years ago in the mid 2000s, to where I was dead asleep and I heard crackling in my ear. I was like, it sounded like people, like somebody taking tin foil and smushing it together, and it woke me
Interesting.
up. And that's when we had a big earthquake. So I jumped up, and then several hours later, we had an afterquake. Um, but then I researched into it more, and some people can actually hear that crackling noise when an earthquake happens.
Now,
And
is
I was,
that similar to a frost quake?
yes, but it's kind of similar to that, and you still have the ground moving. Heck, my whole porch was swaying on the second one that happened that day.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember getting whomped almost out of bed. It was just like a whomp, like but and that was when I lived in north central Illinois by you guys.
Right.
And I was thinking about this morning when I took a flight, I think on Alaska Airlines. Can you tell I'm begging for sponsors on Alaska Airlines? They I flew down to visit my son in Oregon from Seattle where I was living at the time, and they took you right over Mount St. Helens. They try to take you if it's clear and the weather conditions are right and they've got time over all those mountains up the coast. It's
Yeah.
so cool. But they took you right over Mount St. Helens. And it's such a massive blast.
Huh. And see, I've been researching lately into the bodies of Bigfoot being found after Mount St. Helens
Oh,
when it
see, I'm
erupted.
telling you, that's why we get all the good topics. We get which there's so many like when we're talking. So far, there's two topics I want to talk about with you, but we talk about how we sense these and we see things on the news. We should point out that there are continuous GPS stations, and this comes from. I'll give anybody that they ask. By the way, there is a new
Uh,
feedback link on every episode I put out. It's a generic link. It goes to Google. It doesn't go to me. If you want to hear directly from me, it'll ask you to put your email. But if you want these references, just let me know. Just go to that feedback link, and I'll be glad to hook you up with them. But this comes from Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, I think it's in Idaho. But they've got GPS stations, satellite radar, again from Coeur d'Alene, and seismic networks from the U.S. ground station or U.S. ground service. So there's all kinds of you know they've been watching this. And if I talk about YVO, that's the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, just so you guys know.
Yeah,
right.
the only problem with that is look at Mount St. Helens. For as much as they were watching that, they had no clue that eruption was
Exactly.
going to happen when it did.
And
They
they
were
say we're
monitoring it, they had the sensors and everything else, and the next thing you knew, you know, you had to go off at killing
right.
all those people and devastating the area. I mean,
Yeah, I
it
remember like
just
When it
because you
comes
guys, like I
down
say,
to it,
we were
we
Brian,
truly don't know.
you were
Yeah.
probably 10 years old at the time because we've already established you're the youngster, so I'm going to pick on you from now on. But but I remember Mount St. Helens going off, and we were in Illinois. I was at Illinois Valley Community College, and I don't recall any ash impact. Like it's something that massive that we would feel something in the Midwest, right? Like some kind of disruption to
we
growth
actually
trees
did. I
or
remember I
We did.
remember we did have the ash fall out here.
did we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it spread through most of the United States and Canada.
Oh, I believe
It
you.
may have been to a lesser degree by us, but it once it gets up in the atmosphere, you know, it starts flowing. And
It can change the temperature too.
oh yeah, that you know that's the worry about the Yellowstone one if it ever goes off. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you could be talking
When,
you could be feeling a weather impact for decades.
Yeah, and that could actually be actually with Mount St. or not Mount St. Helens, but Yellowstone, that can actually affect the whole world that with one that big. And
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
actually multiple ones like Yellowstone that's located all over the world. So,
it's funny because that kind of made me aware, like you guys, because I mean, of course we know, the Yellowstone geysers, and I never thought, what's causing this geothermal activity. I'd never put two and two together. But like you were saying, John, if it was a caldera forming Yellowstone quote unquote super eruption, first of all, you're dealing obviously with pyroclastic flows. It's a
right,
fast moving avalanche of gas and ash and that type of thing. But beyond the immediate zone, the dominant
right.
threat, like you guys say, would be ashfall. So it's not, but this kind of like volcanic ash isn't like, you're thinking like campfire. That's that kind of, it's not. This is more like microscopic
Yeah.
shards of
And
rock and volcanic glass. So this can cause
the
damage.
the thing I would trust the most if I was near the caldera or anywhere around that zone would be the animals because they're going to tell you first if something's up.
They're going to start to move.
Right. And they're going to migrate somewhere away. Animals know before humans. So, but that would be
I
my
wonder why.
first clue. But the thing is, I've seen maps to where they predicted if it ever went off on the kill zone versus where everything would flow. And you're talking about multiple states to where there would be a kill zone. And you would basically have no time to react.
Yeah, and we got to make sure that, like I said, we're not being sensationalist here. What we're
Right.
seeing from Yellowstone is routine ground uplift. It's done this for,
Right.
they call it
Well,
breathing for decades, but that's very different from Mount St. Helens because that
one
definitely
of the
that accelerated rapidly and the
one,
earthquakes intensified and the pressure was building. So there's no evidence today, just to be clear, that Yellowstone is following the same pattern as
Right.
Mount St.
Right.
Helens.
We're
yeah,
not
one of
trying to
the
fear
sources I was
monger.
looking at actually was saying a Yellowstone supervolcano eruption would cause a catastrophic nationwide impact, blanketing much of the U.S. in ash, destroying infrastructure and causing severe climate disruption within hundreds of miles. Uh, and pyroclastic flows would destroy everything, while ashfall would likely cause thousands of deaths, halt air travel, disrupt agriculture,
Oh
and
yeah,
create a
yeah. I mean,
$3 trillion economic impact.
Yeah.
yeah, we
Not
don't doubt
only
any of
that,
that.
not only
Yeah,
that,
Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming would get the worst of it.
breathing in that too, glass particles and stuff.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I can just
people are going
imagine
to be affected in every which way.
for a
Yeah.
long time.
Well, one of the things they were saying too is like ash could be several feet deep within 1,000 mile radius.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, then I think you said what I was reading. These are again this from Q2 News. I think Q2 is out of Montana. But again, anybody wants these links, let me know. But
Right.
the region is like I say, 20. You said 40 miles across, but 10 miles deep. So if it's something 10 miles deep, pushing up to where you're noticing 1 inch, you got to be concerned. But they call that lift, and they straight up say, and this is the good name for a rock band. You got try, I'm gonna try it. Uh, Uplift
Right.
to magmatic fluids or deep underground processes. Magmatic fluids would be a great name for a rock band, wouldn't it?
There might be one out there.
Magma
Well,
might be
I,
now.
I also read one article to where one of the lakes right there by the caldera had shifted shallower and raised in some areas. So it's even able to move lakes.
Interesting.
And on top of that, there's a guy that I watch off and on YouTube, and he actually reports on pole shifts, magnetic fields, solar flares, the weather patterns, volcanic activity, and asteroid and meteors, and then earthquakes. And I watch him, off and on YouTube. He's pretty good, and he'll show you everything that's going on. Uh, but if you're interested, his YouTube name is Mr. MBB333.
I wonder,
Yeah,
I wonder
it's
why.
an odd name, very odd
He's not
name.
helping himself out with that name.
But yeah, you ought to
They,
give him a try sometime and see what he's like.
well, they're saying out of Yellowstone, the seismicity activity year to year is like 700 to a couple thousand smaller earthquakes annually. But
Right, right.
there's so, but there, if we take that into account, if we would someone do some thinking on our own, which probably is dangerous, but if they're now kind of making noise, it seems like they're saying this is something unusual.
Right. Yeah, and there's also a lot of fear mongering too with people out there, where they're saying,
Exactly.
"Oh, these animals are doing this and these animals are doing that," and you have to really pick and choose wisely on on, on who's fear mongering and who's not.
Well, that's where you get the phrase "the bulge the size of Chicago." That's somebody's like trying to.
See, there we go, back to
Yeah.
Chicago.
Well, that's just like too. You gotta realize that the Yellowstone itself, with the seismic activity that they average between 1,500 and 2,500 earthquakes a year. And last year, there were 1,119 total. So
That's so kooky.
that's
That's so
that's a
kooky.
little bit of a drop, I would say.
And I know the scientists have been saying for years that we're overdue
Well,
by like
I
10
don't
or
know about
12,000
overdue.
years. But how can
As
they
far
really
as
judge that?
overdue is that they're talking an interval between eruptions of about 725,000 years. If
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
go according to that schedule, we've still got about 100,000 years to go before it erupts.
and we should
But
quantify also that
they
that
also said
we're
the same
talking
thing
about.
about Mount St. Helens.
Right.
Well, careful now. You're doing it, John, because you got to be careful because, like you say, the last what the quote unquote caldera forming event. And Brian, give us a definition. What's a caldera?
Well, it's the magma, really, where it's
Yeah,
all
exactly.
building up underneath, and it's a huge chamber. And they take estimates on how big the chamber is, but we don't know exactly everything on how big it is, or if and when it will erupt and whatnot. So
Yeah, you
that
really can't.
chamber that chamber is basically what you got to watch, and you got to watch the ground levels.
Yeah, and they're
So
saying right now they fully say that the YVO is saying that the current uplift is moderate and not unusual. But like John said, to your point, the volcanic system has produced massive eruptions millions of years ago, but the last one,
right,
caldera forming event, was hundreds of thousands of years ago.
right.
So smaller hydrothermic events happen all the time, or geyser events.
Well,
That's
like John said, it could be another 100,000 years before the next one. But then again, I've heard some scientists say we're 10 to 12,000 years overdue. So who's right is the biggest question.
Right.
It's pretty much a guessing game.
Well, that's like not wanting to take a left turn here, but look at Mount St. Helens. They've been having signs of magma uh, build up, and it's in what they call a highly active phase. Even though the last eruption was in 2008, I mean that's another potential one that you're looking at for another eruption. And then
Yeah.
you got volcanoes like Kilauea, which is constantly erupting. I mean,
Right.
they're not major eruptions, but
well, they've
the
been.
island of Hawaii has gotten a lot bigger recently thanks to
Yeah,
the volcano.
and it's incredible. I think you guys will also agree. First of all, this is why monitoring matters, but also when we're monitoring, even from Mount St. Helens 45 years ago, we've got much better technology now.
We do. We do. But like again, Mother Nature can be unpredictable.
I was good thing John was taking a drink. I was waiting for him to make a comment about that, but but the ground uplift is we keep mentioning it, but maybe we should clarify it a little bit. Ground uplift is a slow rise of the Earth's surface caused by movement of magma, hot water, gases underground, and we track it. Scientists track it using GPS stations, satellite radar, seismic instruments. Just to keep an eye on subtle shifts measured in inches over time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing with Yellowstone, it's had these rises and falls with these bulges, over the years. It happens all
Oh,
the
for
time.
years. Yeah.
And from
Yeah.
what they're saying, only about 5 to 15% of the underlying magma chambers are actually molten. Most of it's what they refer to as like a solid mush.
Ugh.
I've never heard of solid mush before, but that's what they refer to it as. And it doesn't have the eruptible volume for a super eruption. So you might get like a,
But one of the
it might,
theories is
it might spurt out and ooze out, but it's not going to be a big eruption from what they're saying because there's not enough stuff down there to actually do it.
Right.
Well, how Yellowstone is different from other volcanic systems, like we've been talking about. You mentioned Hawaii. I think somebody, I don't want to say Krakatoa because that's too obvious, but Yellowstone is a large system with mostly hydrothermal activity. So it's not a steep
Yeah.
Mount St. Helens cone-shaped volcano. The eruptions are very extremely rare. Day-to-day activity is typically geothermal, like we've seen for years and years and
Right.
years. But becomes serious when they're monitoring, and they're going to tell you if it's something to be taken seriously when the uplift accelerates rapidly. And what we're talking about is
And,
very general, but
and you
still,
almost have
since
to
like
wonder too, that geothermal, that seems like it's almost acting like a safety valve.
yeah, maybe right, releasing some pressure and giving us entertainment
Yeah.
value, right?
A release valve. Yep. Yep. And see, if I remember, and John, you're on a computer, you might be able to confirm me, but I think there's another one the size of Yellowstone, if I remember correctly, in Germany.
Well, that would seem
Okay.
odd, wouldn't it? Germany.
Or
Of course,
somewhere near there.
yeah, you're not far from the Alps there. I mean, you've got obviously some underground activity. Because I remember when I went to visit my son who was stationed in Germany, he's like, "Hey, we should drive over and take a look at the Alps," which is a long drive. But when you get there, because we've seen, the Rocky Mountains, we've seen the tallest mountain in Texas is under 9,000 feet. When you pull up to the Alps, nope, pardon me, folks, there's going to be a bad language coming up here, so I might want to turn it off for a second. If you're okay, but you pull up to the Alps, you're like, "Holy shit, whoa, that's that." Those are some. So there's obviously some activity going on there to create those.
Right.
Well, it might be Germany.
It might be, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there's a
Okay,
few
I
around the
got it
world.
here. Germany has a significant, albeit dormant volcanic history with over 30 volcanoes, primarily concentrated in the Eifel region west of the Rhine River. Most famous is the Locker Sea, if I'm pronouncing it right, a caldera
Probably
lake
not.
that last erupted about 13,000 years ago. While not currently active, the area shows signs of magma movement.
Oh, son of a bitch. Because even like as you said, like we've been talking 30,000 does seem that long ago.
No, it doesn't.
That is a short time span for when you consider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're talking about hundreds of thousands as opposed to 15,000. But there are, but like talking the obviously advances in technology, there are limitations of what anybody can predict volcanic activity because they can identify
Right.
warning patterns, but they can't predict, like you guys are saying, nature is very fickle. They can't predict exact timing. So
Right.
volcanic systems are pretty complex, and not every signal leads to an eruption. But then again, conversely, there might be signals that we're not seeing that could lead to an eruption.
Right. I like to compare it to we know just enough, like kind of like tornado sirens. We know how to warn people, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen.
And
Yeah,
even
yeah, like we
when
were
you think
talking.
about tornado sirens and stuff, a lot of them, you don't have much time. When they go
Right.
off, a lot of times it's already hitting you.
Yeah.
And like we were talking beforehand, you guys, we were talking some genealogy, and I discovered some of my relatives had settled in central Texas in 1850 and had a salt mine or a salt operation providing salt. But anyway, it was in place from just I'm giving you just general from 1850 to 1870, but it stopped being in business because a cyclone wiped it off the face of the earth in north
Oops.
and central Texas.
Oh, we don't.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah, they stuck around. They turned to farming after that, but we just got to keep an eye on like I've been wondering about this. Obviously, it's when I see all this new attention, it's battling on YouTube for the outer space information, Artemis versus Apollo, which is fascinating, by the way. And everybody who's listening, this will come out after, but we did an episode on Artemis and Apollo and our channel, our journeys to Mars, which is I just can't. I just makes me stutter. See, I don't stutter that often, but so cool, and it's so anyway. But the narrative around Yellowstone kind of makes people think about understanding, science and natural hazards. So, yeah, the big you want clicks, like you said, Brian. That's why you get the sensational. I'm not going to bring up the name again of the city because I'm still offended. But dramatic language, you get clicks, but it can distort the risk perception. So we're trying to be very clear and very
Right.
concise about putting this out there. It's something to look into if you guys want to.
Right.
I'm sure there's information out there, but that's why I was just wondering about it.
Yeah. We don't want to fearmonger or make people paranoid. Um, yeah. We just want to make it be known.
Yeah, like
You
when
know, and
something like
everything.
they talk about as massive as I'm doing the air quotes here, a super volcano, shows up. It's worth taking a step back and asking,
Right.
just what's going on. And that's why I wanted to get hold of you guys because I knew you guys would be. We have the fun ones. We have paranormal discussions. We have serial killer discussions. We have ghosts. I think was last time we talked was around Halloween, and now we've got super volcanoes. But to understand, like how the monitoring works and what normal activity looks like and where prediction has limits,
Right.
it's really just about learning. And so, I mean, there's
Well,
plenty.
if you look at the monitoring now too, thankfully we've got a lot of advances going on. We've got GPS, we've got satellites, seismic networks, and that are monitoring this stuff. How accurate it is, it remains to be seen.
Right.
But the satellite technology, that's one of the things that they're using now to monitor that bulge to see how it's changing.
I wonder
And
if it like you guys.
I just find it wild that from outer space they're watching the ground move.
Right.
Oh, nice tie-in. Does it like do you guys think, as John's saying that, do you guys think that sometimes, like you mentioned, there's these technologies that have been developed, but it takes an event that happens that they realize there was a shortcoming in their technology, and that's how we develop it better for next time?
I think the Mount
Mhm.
St. Helens disaster woke a lot of people up
Oh yeah.
Oh, I bet.
because those poor technicians, scientists that were at the monitoring station.
Oh yeah. The ones that were killed. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have a chance. They got up, they're looking at the thing, and the next thing they know, the side of the mountain's blown up.
It's just incredible. I mean, just the things like that, I mean, and the people that are putting themselves in the face of danger to try to make it better for us and for people moving forward. Kudos to them. Um, but yeah, like we were just saying, just like that, even they underestimated. It seems like.
Right.
And considering like look at Mount St. Helens, that was back in 1980. That's when we were graduating high school, Mitch and
Some
myself.
yeah, some of us were. Somebody else was probably in third grade. But yeah, I
Well,
mean, it's like
I find it hard to believe that Brian was ever in third grade because I think they probably just put him straight to eighth grade because he was bigger than all the other kids.
I was the tallest and all the way through high school too.
that's funny because I graduated high school. I mean, I wrestled 98 pounds for 3 years in high school. That's how small I was. But and we talk about like
I've seen
the
your baby
potential.
pictures, though. Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think I think I think I ate all the food in the region up for. But we digress. Let's not make fun of Mitch here. But obviously, like something like this that happened, it would be a huge event. I mean, we're not saying that,
Right.
but in civilization wouldn't vanish, but parts of North America would face long-term rebuilding. The economic shock would, of course, ripple around the world. It'd probably cool, reflect sunlight and cool global temperatures for quite a while. So, I mean, just like I say, if nothing else, it was something not to keep beating on the title of the podcast, but something to be wondered about.
Right. Will it
Yeah.
happen in our lifetime, or will it happen many, many, many years in the future? You never know.
Well, I think that looking at these volcanoes and stuff around the country, the most likely one is that one in Oregon, because they're saying it's an underwater volcano and it's a top candidate for an imminent eruption due to rapid magma accumulation and bulging following its typical cycle. So that one, they're basically saying it could go any minute, but it's not a super volcano. It's just a volcano.
Right.
Like there's a difference.
Yeah. I mean, it's still activity is activity.
Yeah, and this one's underwater,
Bowl?
so I could just see this a massive, tsunami hitting the Oregon coast.
And see, one of the theories is if something does erupt, would it become a chain reaction to other things like fault lines, other volcanoes? You know, that is always in the back of my mind, because if it's a chain reaction of events, it could be highly catastrophic.
Well, I should have printed it out and everything, but when I was looking through here, there's a lot of theories that these volcanoes are all interconnected anyways.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Pacific Northwest is a pretty interesting region, isn't it?
Oh, there's a ton of them out there. A lot more than you would expect.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, mainly because we're not thinking about it, right? But isn't there there's that giant, I don't even know, but I know there's plate tectonic activity off the coast of California, right? One's diving underneath the other. And
right. Yeah, actually, everybody keeps hoping Los Angeles is going to float away.
Please. No.
I think in California, well, so goodbye to our California audience. Wherever the Chicago audience is going, you guys can join them there. But this has been good, you guys. It's a good Saturday morning conversation, and I couldn't think of two other people I'd rather have it with. But I can let you get on with your day. I know it's a busy Saturday in North Central Illinois because I've lived it. But yeah, until next time. And by the way, everybody's seen me grabbing the old Mitch mug.
You've been doing little things on advertising lately.
I know it.
And you know what it reminds me of? What's that movie with Jim Carrey where they were advertising?
You need to get a coffee sponsor.
Well, that's funny. That's funny you bring that up because Mitch is thinking about launching a line of coffee.
See, John, you know that movie. What's that movie with Jim Carrey where he goes, "Good morning, good evening, good night"? You know what movie I'm talking about, where they were filming his whole life.
Oh, but he didn't know what was going on.
Right, but they were doing advertisements all over the place, and that's what it felt like on this episode.
Wow, I feel like a shill. I was just pointing it out because this is a nice Mitch mug. You can't get it on the merch store, but there is some good stuff on the merch store. And if you go, you can also buy Mitch's book there. Huh? There's another one. How many plugs did I get in? All right, I better stop. But you guys, thanks very much for joining in today. I can't wait to see what the next topic is because I know it's going to be a fun one.
The Truman Show. I remember.
Okay,
that's what it was. Okay,
one more plug.
Yeah, he was
the
only one that didn't know what was going on.
And if Hollywood wants to come up and put old Mitch on the big screen, we're up for that too. But we'll see you later, guys. Thanks for dialing in.
See ya.